Transformation does not start with someone else changing you. Transformation is an inner self reworking of what you are now to what you will be. This quote by Byron Pullifer showcases a very important theme throughout Shakespeare's play. Though it can be very difficult to understand what exactly he is trying to say about this concept, it is clear that throughout the play, one's identity is never constant. The characters are always evolving and changing during every situation that they experience.
The Taming of the Shrew was written by an English writer, William Shakespeare. Shakespeare is known as the greatest dramatist of all time. Though there is not an official birth document of Shakespeare, there was a recording of a William Shakespeare being baptized at a Holy Trinity Church in Stratford-upon-Avon on April 26, 1564. In today's world, the location where he was baptized is roughly 100 miles northwest of London. Shakespeare lived in a chaotic life with his 2 older sisters and 3 younger brothers. Though there are very few pieces of evidence showing that Shakespeare went to school, many scholars believe that he was taught how to read, write, and the rest of the basics in Stratford. Back in the day, his father's position at what would be considered today a mayor gave him some advantages to life. It is believed that these advantages included William qualifying for free tuition, which was a very big deal back then. Fast forward to a couple years when Shakespeare turned 18.
At this point in his life, he was getting married to the love of his life, Anne Hathaway, who was nearly 10 years older than him. Anne soon became pregnant at the age of 26 after getting married to Shakespeare. Their firstborn, Susanna, arrived after a quick 6 months of Anne being pregnant, but they somehow both survived the birth. 2 years later, Anne gave birth to a set of twins named Hamnet and Judith. Many believed that this was a monumental point in Shakespeare's life because after his children were born, he disappeared for 7 years. There are no known records tracing back to Shakespeare from 1585 to 1592. Though there are many theories about what the great poet was doing during these years, nothing is known for sure. When 1592 came around, records started coming up documenting that Shakespeare was working as an actor and a playwright for the King's Men, which at the time was an acting company near where he had lived. It is believed that this is where Shakespeare had possibly had many of his plays produced, which led up to him being very successful for his time. He later purchased the second largest house in Stratford for him and his family, and continued to write the rest of his 37 plays.
In 1605, Shakespeare and the people he worked with built their own theater, known as the Globe Theater. This allowed him to constantly be around the theater atmosphere and often influenced him to create more pieces. Many of his first plays were considered histories, including Julius Caesar and Queen Elizabeth I, while the next section of plays written were mainly comedies. Some of these comedies include A Midsummer Night's Dream, Much Ado About Nothing, and The Merchant of Venice. Later on in Shakespeare's life, he began to write many tragedies, which are still popular today, such as Hamlet, Othello, King Lear, and Macbeth. Some believe that these plays may have been a reflection of his life during that time period, and that he showcased what he was going through while writing these unfortunate pieces. When Shakespeare died on his 52nd birthday in April 23, 1616, his soul may have passed, but his legacy has continued to live on for hundreds of years. Though Shakespeare has passed, his presence is known in many classrooms and the literary world in general. He has influenced how many authors compose their pieces and has left a great mark on the entire English language.
We will be performing Act 2, Scene 1 from The Taming of the Shrew. In this section, one of the main characters is Catherine. Catherine is the oldest daughter who is unmarried because no man wants to deal with her temper and her wild displays of anger. Although Catherine's unpleasant behavior is obnoxious, it is very plausible that this is from her unhappiness. No man wants to marry her, and Catherine feels out of place in her society. It also appears that she is far more interested in marriage than she lets on, even though she acts through violence.
Another character in this scene is Petruchio. Petruchio is a wealthy man who is looking for a wife during this time of the play. He has his eye on Catherine and is determined to make her his wife. Petruchio is aware of Catherine's reputation, which draws him to her even more. He sees himself as the ultimate shrew tamer and often gives other men tips on how to get their women to be less assertive and aggressive. Though many of his friends thought that taming a shrew is too much work, he is willing to go through the process as long as the woman has a huge bank account.
Another character in the scene is Bianca. Bianca is the youngest and favorite daughter. She is seen as the ideal woman at that time. She is obedient and silent, and the only obstacle preventing from her marriage is her older sister Catherine, as she must be married before Bianca is allowed to be married. Throughout the play, we learn that Bianca is disobedient, deceptive, and passive-aggressive towards her sister.
Manola Baptista is the father of Catherine and Bianca. He is one of the wealthiest men in Padua and has handfuls of men chasing after his daughters because of his richness. If one were to marry his daughters, they would inherit his wealth, which is a driving factor of many of the men who attempt to engage with Catherine and Bianca. Baptista is fed up with Catherine's stubbornness and is desperate to find a husband for her. He has decided that his oldest must be married before Bianca does.
Another character in this scene is Lucentio. Lucentio is a student who comes to Padua to study the city's beautiful university, but he is quickly distracted when he sees Bianca for the first time. He falls head over heels for her at first glance and decides that he needs to see her somehow. He decides to disguise himself as a tutor and convinces Baptista to let him help Bianca. Lucentio soon wins Bianca's love as they decide to get married later on.
Leading up to Act 2, Scene 1 of the play, Lucentio arrives in Padua and takes notice in Bianca, but gets told she is not allowed to marry until her older sister Catherine marries. The problem with this is she is fueled with violence and anger, making it hard for any man to fall in love with her. Lucentio refuses to give up on Bianca and wants to declare his love for her. A few moments later, a young man, Petruchio, arrives in searching for a wife of a rich man's daughter. Lucentio, eager to marry his true love Bianca, sets up Petruchio with Catherine. Lucentio warns Petruchio about Catherine's behavior, although he does not care, as he is only concerned about her rich father.
This specific scene of the play is very crucial to the Taming of the Shrew. In the beginning of the scene, Catherine is her usual aggressive and stubborn self, while Petruchio is trying to push her buttons. Catherine is too headstrong to let Petruchio win any of their witty debates, but he soon tells her how things really are. He explains that Catherine's father, Baptista, has already agreed to allow Petruchio to marry his daughter, and that she ultimately has no say in the decision. Catherine eventually subdues to Petruchio after they become married, and continuously obeys him. She has lost her assertive demeanor and is now controlled by her husband. This quarrel is one of many between Petruchio and Catherine throughout the play, but later on, Catherine loses her voice and is submissive to Petruchio. The theme of power is displayed in the scene because Petruchio ultimately has control over Kate, just like many of the other men who control over other women.
Before the reception starts, Petruchio steals Kate and brings her back to his house, where he starves her and abuses her until she becomes subdued by her husband. This marks the beginning of when Catherine begins to lose her strength and easily obeys Petruchio. At nearly the same time, Lucentio and Bianca get married. They try to do so secretly, but eventually end up coming back and apologizing to their friends and family for trying to hide their wedding. After all of this matrimony madness takes place, there is a party to celebrate all of the recent marriages. During the celebration, Kate proves her obedience to Petruchio by doing everything that he asked her to without any questions. At the end of the celebration, she is ordered by her husband to go on stage and give a speech. She speaks about how wives need to be obedient to their husbands and that women are nowhere near equal to men.
Ever since the play was written, scholars have argued one main question. Does the play advocate for gender inequality, or does it critique men's attempts to subdue women? The Taming of the Shrew is like many of Shakespeare's other pieces of literature because it offers both a tragic and comedic feel. Some scholars view the relationship between Catherine and Petruchio as so ridiculous that it's almost laughable, while others see it as repulsive and degrading over women. Over time, there seems to be a continuous theme throughout the play, no matter who critiques it. That theme is battle of the sexes. Many directors and critics have interpreted the play in many ways, resulting in different approaches taken when remaking this piece of literature. John Fletcher's The Women's Prize, or The Tamer Tamed, offers a message stating that men should not reign as tyrants or their wives, which is widely common reaction to the play. Though made in early times, Fletcher's pieces of work intended to teach the lesson that men and women should be treated equal, and that relationships like Petruchio and Catherine's are very unhealthy. Though his rendition of the play is very common amongst those who read it, the play offers room for interpretation of what that true meaning of the play is. This sets The Taming of the Shrew apart from Shakespeare's other plays, which usually did not have much room for different interpretations of what the piece was trying to depict. tomorrow, Kate, for that is your name, I hear.
Well, have you heard, but something hard of hearing. They call me Catherine, I do talk of me.
You lie in faith, for you are so called, plain Kate, and bony Kate, and sometimes Kate the curse. But Kate the prettiest Kate in Christendom, Kate of Kate Hall, my super dainty Kate, for dainties are all Kates, and therefore, Kate, take this of me, Kate and my consolation. Hearing thy mildness praised in every town, thy virtues spoke of, and thy beauty sounded, yet not so deeply as thee belongs. Myself am moved to woo thee for my wife.
Moved in good time, let him that moved you hither remove you hence. I knew you at first, you were immovable.
Why, what's immovable?
A joint stool.
Thou hasn't hit it. Come sit on me.
Asses are made to bear, and so are you.
Women are made to bear, and so are you.
No such jade as you, if me you mean.
Alas, good Kate, for I will not burden thee, for knowing thee to be but young and light.
Too light as such a swain as you to catch, but as heavy as my weight should be.
Should buzz.
Will ta'en, and like a buzzard.
O slowing turtle, shall a buzzard take thee?
I for a turtle, and like a buzz.
Come, you'd wasp, I'd faith you are too angry.
If I be waspish, best beware my sting.
My remedy is to them pluck it out.
I, if the fool could find it where it lies.
Who knows not where a wasp does his sting? In his tail?
In his tongue.
Whose tongue?
Yours if you talk of tales and of farewells.
What, with my tongue in your tail? Nay, come again, good Kate, I am a gentleman. I swear I'll cuff you if you strike again.
So you may lose your arms. If you strike me, you are no gentleman. And if you are no gentleman, then no arms.
A herald, Kate, oh put me in thy books.
What is your crest? A coxcomb?
A combless cock, so Kate will be my hen.
No cock of mine, you crow too like a craven.
Nay, come Kate, come, you must not look so sour.
It is my fashion when I see a crab.
Why, here's no crab, and therefore look not sour.
There is.
Then show it me.
Had I a glass, I would.
What do you mean, my face?
Well, aim for such a young one.
Now, by St. George, I am too young for you.
Yet you are withered.
'Tis with cares.
I cared not.
Now I hear you, Kate. In sooth, you 'scape not so.
I chafe you if I tarry. Let me go.
No, not a whit. I find you passing gentle. 'Twas told me you were rough and coy and sullen, and now I find report a very liar. For thou art pleasant, gamesome, passing courteous, but slow in speech, yet sweet as springtime flowers. Thou canst not frown, thou canst not look askance, nor bite the lip as angry as wenches will. Not hast thou pleasure to be cross in talk, but though with mildness entertains thy wooers, with gentle conference, soft and affable, why does the world report that Kate doth limp? O slanderous world, Kate like the hazel twig is straight and slender, and as brown in hue as hazelnuts, and sweeter than the kernels. O let me see thee walk, thou dost not halt.
Go, fool, in whom thou keepst command.
Did ever Dean so become as grove as Kate this chamber with her pricely gate? O be thou Dean, and let her be Kate, and then let Kate be chaste and Dean sportful.
Where did you study this goodly speech?
It is exemptor from my mother's wit.
A witty mother, and witless her son.
Am I not wise?
Yes, keep her warm.
Very, so I mean, sweet Catherine, in thy bed, and therefore setting all this chat aside, this in plain terms, your father hath consented that you shall be my wife, and dowry agreed, and will, you know nil will, I will marry you. Now, Kate, I am a husband. For your turn, now, for by this light, I whereby see thy beauty that doth make me like thee well. Thou must be married to no man but me. For I am born to tame you, Kate, and bring you from a wild Kate to a Kate conformable as other household Kates.
After reading and reviewing The Taming of the Shrew, it is very evident that this play is unlike any that we have read before. Though it offers the usual medieval time ideals like other older pieces of literature, this play leaves room for much interpretation. Although this play is categorized as a comedy, Shakespeare portrays realistic marriage issues that are relevant today. We enjoyed following the experiences that occurred with Petruchio, Lucentio, Bianca, and Catherine, and believe it is one of Shakespeare's greatest comedies. We would recommend that everyone reads or watches the play as it continues to be an inspiration to many and relate to today's modern day culture.